Welcome back, everyone. As usual, if you can turn on your cameras, please. I would like to know who is there. 4 people only? Okay, 5. Good. So, guys, today, I really want to talk about your grades in the assignment 2. I am a little bit worried about what I have in your assignments 2. It's the first assignment with class diagrams. It's the first assignment with software design in object-oriented. And I noticed several mistakes that are kind of easy to solve. We need to move forward with patterns, design patterns, architectural patterns, model-driven development. But I cannot move, I do not want to move to those topics if I am not sure that we understand UML and that we have the knowledge about class diagrams and how the class diagrams map to source code. At the end, what we are doing is to create this diagram, this blueprint, and that blueprint is equivalent 100% to an implementation. If we do not know or we do not understand that these two, the blueprint and the product, they should be equal, they are equivalent, then do not make sense that we learn how to create blueprints because we cannot connect the blueprint with the software. And at the end, the goal is to develop the software. The goal is to have the product. The blueprint is there to help us. It's not just the cover for the documentation and make this nice picture to submit. It's really something that shows the reader what is inside of the product, the blueprint. And I want to review with you your blueprints. The blueprints for the assignment 2. Let me give you a context. Assignment 2 is basically lexical analysis in a compiler. It's one of 4 subsystems. The subsystem that is reviewing the words. Something that I could ask you later in the next assignment is the parser, semantic analysis, translation, or code generation. And still, we need to talk about the graphical interface in which we can go crazy with the features that we want to put in our developer environment. I am talking about the product that you submit can grow crazy in the number of classes, the number of methods, and the connections. And it's a very good opportunity to apply patterns and good practices and other kind of things. I would like to talk about the algorithms, the analysis of the algorithm, whether or not the algorithm that you implement is good or not, can be improved, notation O, you know, all that kind of stuff. However, at least for today, I want to use this. My assumption was that you all have experience with UML. My assumption was that what we reviewed in previous classes was easy to you for just take a look and move forward. Today, I want to open the conversation, and please, I am going to show you examples, your homeworks. Feel free to ask. If you have a question, maybe the diagram that I am showing is yours, ask now. Do not wait later to submit an appeal. Let me be clear. The TA is going to review your source code, anything related with your diagrams. I am the one grading. So do not wait for the appeal. Ask the question right now. Hopefully you are there. If someone is not here, I am going to ask anyone that submit an appeal to watch this video. So I am sure that here you are going to find the answer for anything. So moving forward, I open your class diagrams, start reading your class diagram. And when I found something like interesting, a red light, I go and check your source code. Only if the diagram asks me for that. Only if there is something there that do not look good. That is what you do with your blueprints. Think about it. You receive the blueprint of your home or the building in ASU, you check the blueprint, and well, if something doesn't look good in the blueprint, like there is a missing door or window, then you go to the building and check like, hey, what is happening here, right? So I did something like that with your assignments. 20-something assignments. I do not know if I am going to have enough time here. Please let me know when I run out of time, but I am going to try to share common errors. Several of you make similar errors, so I am going to move forward in those cases, maybe explain the first one and then just move to the others, but there is a diversity of problems here. What I did and used for this lecture is to separate your submissions in 5 categories. I am going to show you diagrams that is 1 star, 2 stars, 3, 4, and hopefully, well, there is one with 5. You have the slides, so you can check what I am going to do. Again, if you have a question, please feel free to talk or use the chat. You can send me a private message and I can answer your question. Probably your question is something that could help someone else. So let's start. Number 1, usually I use the red boxes. I am going to use green for things that are okay, or blue, but I put this kind of magenta box here because there is a problem there, a big problem. The biggest problem that I found in a class diagram. Can you help me? What happened there? Why that box there? And these are going to be questions that I am going to put in your quizzes, and I am going to put this in your exam. So I really need to be sure that you do not make this mistake in the exam or in the quiz. Moreover, if this is your assignment, I need to be sure that you are aware what happened there, that you make a mistake and what is the mistake. What happened there? Okay, you have the answer in the chat. Guys, instead of giving the answer myself, I am going to try to ask the question and I am going to look forward for one of you to answer the question so everyone else can read the chat. And if this is your submission, that is your feedback. That is the reason because you are not going to receive 100 points or 100% on this. This one and this one. The same line, inheritance and composition. Impossible. If this is your diagram, please. I don't know what happened, but this is wrong, really, really wrong. I could give you 1 point over 10 for this, just because you try to do something, but it's 1 over 10. It's really, really wrong against everything that we reviewed in the previous weeks. Nothing here really to review. And again, check the book, check the previous lecture. More than an appeal for this, I can give you office hours and go through basic UML, but this is wrong, very wrong. Probably hard to read, but did you notice what is here? I have a class, well, an interface there, and according with this, the name of the interface is border. There is some dots here and something like this. This is the class GUI, a graphical user interface, which is this class. If I have this line, what are you expecting in the source code? I mean, I do not know what is border, But if you give me graphical user interface border and they are connected with this line, keyword, implements, the big question is, what happened there? Summary, review inheritance, review composition, the diagram should match with the source code, diagram is not matching the source code, the relationships in the diagrams are messed up. No points. I put this in the category of 1 star, but I cannot give you points for this. Sorry, guys. Next one. By the way, if this is your diagram, I think you do not submit the source code. Just to let you know. Problems in the red boxes. What do you think is happening with the red boxes? Those arrows. Bidirectional association. Tell me, it is possible to have bidirectional association with those classes, JFrame, JTable, JPanel, JTextArea? Guys, we need to review inversion of control. There are some situations in which a library is going to call a method in your classes, but usually that is going to involve realization, implementing an interface, because that is the only way that the library can be sure that you have the method that the library needs to call. We need to review that. Without that, and just connecting these libraries, these widgets, with whatever class you do, there is no bidirectional relationship. I do not know why you think that a label could be calling a method in your class graphical user interface, and which one could be that method? Remember, we talk about the lines, and I told you several times, if you do not put the arrow, what you are telling is bidirectional relationship. And we talk about what is the meaning of bidirectional relationship. One class, the yellow one, calling a method in the blue one calling a method in the yellow one. And I want you to apply this to your programs. That is the reason of your assignment. And think about it. Really, the blue ones, the label, the frame, the table, they are calling a method in my graphical user interface class? And hopefully you reach the conclusion that that is not happening. So if that is not happening, the relationship is not bidirectional, is use single direction. And therefore, hopefully that is clear. Again, guys, the class diagram is not just a decoration. The class diagram is the blueprint. You read the class diagram and you are reading the source code. At least that is the goal of this. Software design is, this is the source code. And well, it's very easy. We have only boxes with some arrows. You need to use the arrows correctly. So hopefully this is clear. Moving forward, what do you think about that one? The one below is an error. I put a big cross. The one above is just a question mark. Having a class used for the main later could be a good idea. Later, probably this could become the lecture. However, the graphical user interface is going to be the graphical user interface for the system. Having a class that only have a main and is an aggregation of a graphical user interface is an extra class. There is no real reason for having this class alone. Moreover, if you're going to have this extra class, think about it. Should this be black? Just because it's, if that class application do not have the graphical user interface, then what is the reason for that class to exist? What that class is doing, if not use hosting the graphical user interface? Again, my recommendation is this main should be here. Most of you put the main in the graphical user interface. So far, our code is small, so you can do that. You move out, okay, but if you move out, just think about the relationship. The relationship is more a composition than an aggregation, just because it's mandatory for this class application to have something, to do something. And in this case, well, the graphical user interface. So I just put here question marks, but really the problem is these relationships here and other things that I need to mention in other examples. And again, the source code, I do not have the source code for this. Another example. Well, it depending, the question about the grades. You're going to receive your grade, and your grade is your source code, your diagram, two things. What I mentioned before is I am the one grading your diagram. So you're going to receive something plus something. Maybe your code is perfect. If your code is perfect, you're going to receive 50 points for your code. If your diagram have issues, 50 plus 10, 50 plus 20, 50 plus something. So just for you to be aware that even though your source code works perfectly, this is not a programming assignment. So your source code could work perfectly, and maybe you receive 50% of the grade. If your class diagram is maybe like the first one that I showed you, that one is 0 points. Yeah, three things that we're going to review. This is just for the example, but number one, we're reviewing your source code. Number two, we're reviewing your class diagram. Number three, you are reviewing your document that you submit your conclusion and your screenshots. So we're reviewing three things. The important one that I want to review with you here is the class diagrams. Submit your conclusion and your screenshot. Basically, is you submit or not. I mean, you send that or not. I reviewed some assignment. Some people didn't submit that part, so you're going to lose points. Your source code, the TA is going to basically compile and run. The part that I think is going to have more appeals is this one. So that is the reason because I am recording this video about this part, just in case someone wants to appeal something here. Yes, that is what I am going to mention right now. This class diagram, things that I want to mention. What do you think about these columns? Just to be sure, previous knowledge of UML, what is the way in which we represent public and private? And I think I mentioned this also in the previous weeks. Maybe someone was not in the lecture, but plus and minus. Adding the word private or public or whatever, that is not a class diagram. Those elements are not in the class diagram. And well, this is wrong. We review this. You have previous knowledge of this. If you need help with this, we can have office hours. But this is wrong in the class diagram. Those words should not be there. Moreover, something that I talked with you, something that we reviewed before is you can use the variables here or the relationship with the classes. Is one or the other. Obviously, my request, the idea of a class diagram. The idea of a class diagram is that you show the relationship with pictures. Usually the rule is as follows. For data structures, for collections, vector, array, tree, linked list, all of that, they are going to store data. You can put them like this, like variables. You do not need to show the connection with the class vector, linked list, tree, any of the collections, because the goal is to store data. It's not like communication with the class or using the class for other purposes. However, when you're working with a graphical user interface, when you're working with frame, panel, all these elements, it is better to represent the diagram as you showed me before. Something like this. Show the classes in the diagram and the relationships, the correct relationships, instead of just list the variables there. Again, primitive data, collections, they are okay inside of the box. Other classes, they are outside, and you need to show the relationships, and the relationships are the relationships that we reviewed before. So put this out. Moreover, what do you think about this? That connection? Without reviewing the source code, can you agree with me that the diamond is in the wrong place? Just read the diagram and think about it. You solve the problem. There is any chance in which token, the class token, is going to have a lexer? The class token is the data. The data is going to have something else, the one that is creating the data. And I hope that all of you solve the problem, all of you are aware of the process to follow, and you are going to agree that this diamond is not in the correct place. And again, it's something that we reviewed the previous lecture. The diamond should be in the class that is the owner, the class that is the important one, and is pointing to the element that is inside of the owner. So probably this one should be there. The lexer is the one that have tokens, not the opposite. Extra note regarding the requirements. If I remember correctly, I showed you the graphical user interface. Something that I asked you to do is use tables, but in particular, I think I mentioned to you, use the JTable. In the source code, I noticed for this particular solution that there are no JTable. Moreover, you represent the data with some HTML labels to create a table. Again, that do not was the requirement. The requirement was for you to learn how to use the JTable class, and therefore include the JTable class in your software and in your diagram. So this is not the requirement for the project. Just check it if this is your project. If this is your project, please review JTable, because I am going to ask you to use JTables in other projects in the future. I am counting that you learn how to use that element for your projects. So check this. Another one, I think I mentioned this in the previous lectures. What is that arrow? That one is inheritance, or is association, or is? Let me mention this again. If you're going to do a class diagram, use the correct tool. If you're going to do a class diagram and you're going to use PowerPoint or Word or whatever, I don't know, maybe you can add here something to represent this, or if you want to represent this, even with your print this and put with a pen, pencil, and then scan again. Not the best recommendation. I mean, my assumption is that you know some software to do class diagrams. Maybe you can get that one. It's free for you as students. Use the correct tool. Do not give me diagrams like these ones, in which the arrows, I do not know what are those arrows. because this is not UML notation. Moreover, several of you use this one. Again, probably you copy paste from my slide. It's not one of the options that we review in the lectures. Again, if you need to review which are the connections and the arrowheads that you can use, check the previous lectures and be sure that what you are doing is something that it is clear for you why that arrow in particular should be there or should not be there. For this diagram, nope, nope. And I think that is a no either. And it's a no because your source code, not because the arrow cannot be used, but this one, I go and review your source code and your source code do not correspond to that one. Anyway, talking about source code, can you tell me what do you think about that block of source code? Hopefully it's clear in your screens and you can take a look to that source code there. Did you notice something particularly interesting, something that is weird? Yeah. Did you notice that you have this method here with one line? And did you notice that you have this other method here with one line? So there are two methods with one line. By the way, there are two methods with one line, and below those, the method split line. And some code. I add this to the slides because you're going to notice that I have several cases, several teams that use randomly. Several teams decide to have these methods with only one line, which is an error, by the way. You do not want to have methods with only one line, right? It is particularly interesting that several teams choose to do that. Moreover, it caught my attention that the names of the methods and even the order of the methods are the same. I put this note here, academic integrity question mark, because I want to tell you I am going to ask the TA to review the code with more detail and check if this is just a coincidence in this point or there are more. My request, guys, please. I do not know if it's the case here. Hopefully not, but please be careful with academic integrity. Do your own work, and well, let's see what happens with this. The TA is going to be in communication with you if we detect that there is more code that is similar. Hopefully not, really, because academic integrity is a 0. I don't care the code, the diagram, the PDF. If there is any academic integrity issue, remember, 0 the first time, the second is a report. So hopefully it's not the case. That caught my attention. My note here, please guys, methods with one line, do not do that. Another thing here, before I move forward, did you notice something here? Did you notice that everything is with the underline? Everything is static. What do you think about that? A class, in particular, the graphical user interface, everything is static. Is something that you would recommend to do? All the methods and all the variables according with this, and I verify the code and that is true, everything is static. Would you recommend that? Yes, no, why? Object-oriented programming. Everything is static. Everything. Yes or no? Don't do that. If you put everything static, what you are doing is structural programming. You are forgetting object-oriented. It is okay to have some variables static or some methods static. You have the class math, and the class math have all the methods static and constants. But when you're doing a graphical user interface, the graphical user interface is one of the most common examples of working with objects. Do not make a graphical user interface static. That is not a good design. Again, is a recommendation. I put a question mark here. It's something that is not necessary, and moreover, is something that is not recommended. So I want to mention this. If this is your work for the next assignment, please be sure to remove the statics. You will need the static things, but never everything in one class, all things static. That is not correct. And if you have questions in the details, we can have office hours, but this is not good. Moving forward, what do you think about this? My comment here, why to separate the diagram? If you give me this, I have a big question mark in my review. Do I review this one with the connection but without the data, or do I review this one with the data but without connections? This is not the way that you create a class diagram. Moreover, class name here, you do not put that in a class diagram. Additionally, this connection here, a lecture calling a method in the graphical user interface. I didn't review your code. However, that connection, lecture using the graphical user interface, is a big red light. As you know, and hopefully every one of you can agree with, a connection should be done between these two. But whatever is your connection, probably is going to be in this direction, or maybe it's going to involve a diamond in GUI. So these two, those are connections that you create. Those are connections that you know, because the equivalent in the source code, the graphical user interface is going to call the lecture. Therefore, it's going to have an object lecture. Probably lecture is going to return something, but that return is not something that you represent with a line. And that line there do not look good. Moreover, having to separate elements is not correct. A class diagram is not like this. Moreover, this one, your enumeration, I am not pretty sure what was the idea. When I read this, I am not sure if this is a class with the name enum, or that one is an enumeration for something. Here looks like an enumeration with other teams other teams use an enumeration. However, here it says class name, which is confusing. But moreover, you have these arrows connecting these, like calling methods. Use a question mark there. Hard to know if you are talking about a class, probably not, or an enumeration. But if that is an enumeration, I am not sure that you need to connect them with these two. You can review your source code, and again, open your source code, read your source code, and check if really your diagram match with that before your exam, and probably before your next quiz. Another one. One line, split lines. The second case, similar to the one that I mentioned before, two methods with one line and exactly above the split lines. Hopefully it's not academic integrity, but it's there. Again, arrows, and this one, copy paste of the slide. You would like to review this. There are missing elements. This class diagram only is showing only the yellow classes. Here we are missing the frames and all the widgets. A lot of elements are missing. This one is basically what I showed you in one slide, the class that was the center for you to complete. A lot of things are missing here. What do you think about that source code, the one in the corner? Main hub. Again, particularly with this assignment, several teams have this idea of having methods with one line. I do not know if that is something that you review in a different class or where that comes from, but it's a bad idea to have a method with only one line. Moreover, in this particular example, you have the main calling another method, and that's it. And the other method is below. Why not use delete the call, delete this, and that is your method? And probably this is very, very simple for some of you, but hopefully the people that usually do not participate in the chat, the people that do not show the faces, is going to have the opportunity to review this later. Guys, that is wrong. And it's maybe the third time, fourth time that I show you this method with one line, and there are more. So hopefully this do not happen again with the next assignments. And similar, please found a tool that you can use for UML. This one, we already talked about it. Again, I mean, this is not UML. And if you need to review UML, please, office hours. Another one. I would prefer that you use a tool instead of writing on paper, but well, I am not reviewing that this is done on paper. However, in particular, I want to point out, did you notice this in the diagram? And this is the source code. Did you notice the problem? Diagram, source code. Did you notice that in the diagram, you're telling me that there is going to be inheritance? However, did you notice that in the source code, there is no inheritance? Moreover, did you notice that you have a variable? So one of two things. The guy that did the source code didn't know that the inheritance was the option, or the one doing the class diagram, instead of this, use this. So I do not have a way to know which was the problem. However, when I put these two together, that is not the class diagram for the application. Moreover, by some, I don't know why, but the source code for these classes, I think 3 classes, someone submit this in only one file. So I cannot compile it. Probably the TA is going to try to split your file, but please do not do that. I mean, the goal is 1 class per file or 1 file per class. So I do not know why someone put all the classes in one file. Check that, please, for the future assignments. More. What do you think about graphical user interface? And I give you the source code and I give you the class diagram. And I am going to do this in your exams or in your quizzes. This is the code, this is the diagram. Is correct, yes or no? And I am asking you probably for you to your attention there. Did you notice the problem? Did you notice? I have these things here. Good. The graphical user interface, I am expecting to have panels and elements. They are not here, which could be okay. But then I am missing the relationships. I am missing the classes. Remember, you put the classes and the relationships, or you put the variables inside. I already give you the rule. However, here, you are not giving me the relationships, neither you are giving me the elements as a variable. So there is no recollection in this blueprint that this software is using these elements. It's just that do not exist. Think about a blueprint, and the blueprint is not showing any door or any window. However, you go to the building and the building has doors and windows. Something do not match. This diagram is not showing any graphical element, but in the source code, there are graphical elements. Do not match. What do you think about this main? And that is the source code. You know what? I reviewed this one in particular because of this line. Having a loop in a class like that one is a very special thing. It could be very powerful, very useful, and we're going to talk about that with patterns, but also could be risky. So when you notice this, the first thing that you're going to do is, okay, that one is a good choice for one particular pattern. If the pattern is here, that loop is the symbol for the pattern. Okay, you have that loop, you are using this pattern, that is good because the pattern is a solution for a particular problem. Here, I have the loop, the pattern is not being used. I have the loop without a justification. The justification is the pattern. And that is a red light. And when you have a red light, what you do is, let's review the source code. And then I open the source code. And when I open the source code, that is the source code that I have. And I am asking you, developers, engineers, what do you think about the source code? Big concern. Having a main method empty. Again, we're going to review inversion of control. And that is going to be a big topic. And we're going to talk about situations in which you do not create a main. But you do not create a main, you do not have a main. But if you have a main, having the main empty is not a good practice. It's not easy to read for others. Moreover, doing something like this, the new outside of the constructor is not a good idea. It's not a good practice, guys. I know that this works. I can compile and run. It's going to create an entity of the class, and the entity of the class is going to create the graphical user interface. It's going to work. But remember this, not every code, not every program that works is a good program, is a good source code. And what we're reviewing here is rules for good code, good design. This is not exactly correct, and this is not what you should do with a main, not with a variable, not with a constructor. We can talk in office hours with the particular team that did this if you have any question, but in general, for everyone, this is not correct. Do not do this. You have a main. The main should put things to work. The main should have steps inside. The main should have something. If not, there is no reason. If you have a method with one line, or if you have a method with 0 lines, something is wrong. Something is wrong. Good? Questions so far, guys? Simple, right? Usually during the lectures, no questions. I am concerned that without questions, hopefully your assignment 3 improved a lot, hopefully. Anyway, moving forward, another example, I think you can help me with this. We already talked about it, right? Use a best tool. What about this here? There is a problem there, and can you notice what is the problem with this small rectangle? What is the diagram telling you? Yeah. According with the diagram, I have a static variable and the type of the variable is the same class. For you that are familiar, this is kind of a semi-singleton thing. Private static. Do you think that I need that for the graphical user interface? Do you think that I need in the graphical user interface a static variable and the data type is the same graphical user interface? There is any reason, any justification for that? You create graphical user interfaces, so you know how to create a graphical user interface. There is any reason for that? And hopefully everyone agree with that no on the screen. There is no reason for doing that. It's just, again, you look at the blueprint and you check something in the building, in the home, and you just notice that in some of the rooms, there is no wall. There is a big space there, and you're expecting a wall, and there is not that one, and your brain starts thinking about why? What is the justification for this blueprint, for this building to be missing this thing, or to have this thing that is usually not there? That happened with software. You read this and you're thinking, why? I am a developer. I know how to do a graphical user interface. What is the justification for make this graphical user interface more complex with more variables? What is going to be the advantage? There is not advantage. Therefore, you can question the technical skills of the people developing the diagram, and therefore the technical skills of the team that is going to develop the building, the software. Wrong. What do you think about all this column there? When I read the diagram, it's look very good. It looks like, okay, finally I have a diagram that is going to move to more than one starts. The diagram looks great. Follow several of the recommendations that we reviewed before. The problem is when we open the source code. These arrows correspond to that code. Question in your exam, this diagram, this code, they match, yes or no? And I have at least 2 no's in the chat. Everyone else agree. I have 37 people connected right now, and I have 2 no's. Hopefully the other 32 agree. Okay, 3. I have global variables. When I have global variables, what is the relationship? And I have mentioned this several times. Global variables, the relationship is going to be association, like in the diagram, or something else? Something else. And the something else is going to involve diamonds and aggregation composition. Now, you mentioned aggregation composition. If you look at this source code here, is aggregation or is composition? Composition. Can you agree that if I give you this source code in your quiz, in your exam, and I ask you, what is the relationship between the class GUI and JFrame, for instance, those 2 classes? hopefully you agree with me that the only correct answer is composition. There is not partial credits for association or partial credits for aggregation, or it's just like, this is the question. And the only possible correct answer is this one. And if you tell me this or this, Professor, I am very close. That doesn't work in that way. One correct answer, everything else is just not correct. Good? Okay. I already mentioned this one. Hopefully you can remember that one. Token lecture with the diamond in token, correct or not? And I use this one. Okay, good. No. And you can explain that, right? For the people watching the video, I explained this previously, so you can go back and check my explanation why the diamond black cannot be in token. Moving forward, another one. I already explained all of this. This arrow black do not exist, so all this wrong. But let's talk about this class here and what you notice with the class. Answering the question in the chat, yes, obviously. For instance, when you work with mouse listener asks you to implement 4 methods or something like that, crazy number of methods, and you only need one. You put your code in that one, and the others are going to be empty. That case is kind of okay. The people understand that it's because of the interface. My previous comments about the main or about the method with one line is when you do not have a justification, the thing is wrong. However, always, 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 you have exceptions. For instance, implementing an interface with several methods. Okay. Usually, guys, when you are doing a blueprint or when you are doing the class diagram, you are engineers. Ask yourselves, can I justify this decision? Can I justify to put a door here, to put a window there, to remove the window there? I mean, if you're thinking in the building, you need to justify to your customer why you are using your resources to add or to remove some elements in a particular room or in a particular floor. Think about the same with the software. Can I justify this method with one line? Can I justify this method empty? There is other solution for this and for that. Is this the correct arrow? That is the reason, because you are working, well, you have the opportunity to work with 2 people. You used to have the opportunity to have this conversation, this question with another person. Unfortunately, if some people use a split, you do the diagram, you do the code, that is a very bad idea. Anyway, so the class graphical user interface, what do you think here? Did you notice that you are telling me one thing in the diagram, but other thing different is happening in the code? Similar with the variables. Here you are telling me these variables here represent diamonds. I do not know if diamonds in white or in black, but they are diamonds. I do not see diamonds here. Problem with the design. Source code. You have the main to create one object and call a method that is this method. Creating the object, okay. Calling a method could be the constructor, or if the instructions are going to be here, you can just create this one like one. Again, there is no justification for the main only calling one method. So the design have several issues, the code have issues. Please, if this is yours, review before the next assignment. Remember, the reason because I am reviewing this code with you, besides let you know the errors and give you the opportunity to learn for the exam, is you are going to reuse your classes and your code for the next project. And my expectation is you are going to fix these errors. So your next project is going to be better than this one, hopefully. So I am moving forward with 2 stars. The only reason because I put this here with 2 is still, this is a big question. I have a big question there. Lexer static. That is possible, guys. Exactly. Can we agree on that? I mean, the name of the class is Lexer. And therefore, if you give me a method that is Lexer, that is the constructor, but then it's underlined, probably it's a confusion about what is the meaning of the line below. But remember, the line below, this line here is static. So what you are telling me in this diagram is that the constructor is static. And well, going back to your programming skills, you do not do that with a constructor, right? I mean, the constructor is not static. So using that moment, this is wrong. I didn't check the source code, but I am sure that the source code and this diagram are going to be different. Other than that, a lot of missing elements. This is a big error. This is a big error. That's it. Other things seems to be moving forward to just establish something. Missing elements, but at least this is okay. This is okay. This comes from the diagram that you have. Big question mark. Wrong, wrong. Moving forward. Anyway, this one. What do you think about all this column here compared with this column there? Match? According with the diagram is aggregation. The source code is aggregation. The diamond should be black. Why? Because the variables are here, but all the news are in the default constructor. There is no way that those variables are going to be null. Those variables are going to have a value because the constructor is going to be called, it's the default one. So they are mandatory. They are going to be composition. All this here seems to be black diamonds. Exactly. Good. So I am not sure if this is complete. However, it looks good. The first time that I have a diagram in which the variables are not mentioned in the connections, which is okay. However, well, remember the diamond black. That could be my comment with this one, the most important one. Still, we need to compare the source code about this. Another thing, and I put this in green, is not an error, but recommendation. What do you think about this code here and the names here? And a lot of you use exactly the same solution. Almost every single team decide to define this constant thing. Recommendation regarding the names. Capital letters. Capital letters, final. They are constant. They should be constant. I mean, they are not going to change. Moreover, regarding performance, list of strings or something else? I noticed that a lot of the solutions use hash maps and sets and very interesting data structures, list of strings. Can we solve this with something else? Can we use enums? Can we use a bidimensional array of strings? What is better, an array or a vector or linked list? When did you use a linked list or a vector, and when did you use an array? This is kind of a question for a programming interview. It's like, really? You need a linked list to store those data, and you just told me that they are constant? Because the key idea for a linked list is to be dynamic. You insert and remove things, and the list can continue growing. You do not need that. According with you, you tell me they are going to be constant. They are going to have those elements and not more. What is the best solution? Programming interview question. I fully agree with the chat. Me encanta. The data is static. If the data is static, use a static data structure. A static data structure, an array. And this is a comment for all the teams, guys. I noticed these constants. Great that you define the constants. If you're using vectors, lists, sets, hash maps, probably you're using a data structure that is too powerful for the solution that you need. You only need an array or an enumeration if you want, because it's static. Good. So I do not grade that part. I just put the note. Again, a recommendation for you in your next assignments. Please think about it. Is, again, programming interview question or something like that. This one, if this is yours, you do not submit the Java files. I think you only submit the dot class, so I was not able to review your code. My concern is, I don't know, I think I am missing methods, or I think that the program is not complete. You all know what the software should do, and what I have is 2 methods here and another 3 methods here. My concern is not complete, or this method run is very, very big. I don't know. That is my comment with this one. I am going to talk about the solution. I agree with the comment in the chat. When you want to check if the words are there or not, the complexity increase with the solutions that you implement. I need to talk about what could be a different approach for solving the problem that I give you. I want to talk about how to solve the problem from the algorithmic point of view. I was planning to do that today. I am going to do that in the next lecture. Today, I prefer to spend more time with the classes. So I am going to talk about that, about the complexity and the solution that I could propose for the problem. Don't worry. We reviewed this one before with the 2 relationships, so you can watch the previous video. We reviewed this one also with the arrays here and the integers and the booleans and the strings here. You can watch the previous video, right? Okay, so 3 steps. I really want to be able to show you better solutions, not only the ones with errors. So 3 here. My main concern with this one is, again, one method, and before the split line, I share the comment with the TA, academic integrity, worry about. Anyway, good things about this. Finally, the connections are more or less matching the methods. I think this one should be out, just like these two are out. The arrows looks more or less okay. I will insist that the frame should be inheritance instead of association, composition, aggregation. Inheritance is the best thing to do. It's preferable to use inheritance. However, so far, good. Here, source code for this class and the class itself. What is happening there? Did you notice all the statics here? I already mentioned that it's not the best thing to do, but my problem right now is if you're telling me that they are static here, I am not looking static in the diagram. Did you notice how many variables do I have in the diagram and how many connections? Looks like I have 3 variables. Looks like I have connection with 3 things. Do you think that something is missing? I have a J table here. Where is J table in the diagram? Exactly. They do not match. So it is good that you do not have twice the things, but just check that you are not missing things. There are things missing. I do not print the code below, but probably this one need a diam. Be careful with the diams and the associations, please. That is a very common mistake. Anyway, still the question is, what is this? I am assuming copy of the slide. Anyway, what do you think about this column and that source code? You already have the answer, right? It's another case of aggregation versus, oh, that is another thing. I need to talk about the keys and the drive probably in the next class. But can you agree that do not match the relationship? Global variables. I need you to memorize this. If you have global variables in your diagram, you are going to have a diamond, white or black, but the diamond. If you are giving me a class like this one, and you are giving me attributes, global variables, this is wrong. It's not just association. You are not just calling a method. You are doing more than that. So similar, if you have all these relationships here, do not repeat yourselves. Do not put again the variables and the relationships. I mentioned this before and several examples before this one. Hopefully it is clear by now. What do you think about this one? And probably the color should be different, but what do you think about this Lexer class and the hash set there? This is not about design. This is more about computer science. You do not need hash sets, hash maps, sets, trees, or those complicated structures for a Lexer. Just to let you know, if you have a problem that involves a Lexer in a programming interview or something like that, a Lexer is a common example, something that can be solved with just linear programming, something that can be solved used with the basic things, arrays. That is the thing that you can use with arrays. You can solve the Lexer. If you want to make this dynamic, you can use lists, vectors, but you do not need to move to the top of the data structures. Remember, you need to show that you are capable of solving problems with a reduced set of tools. Do not go and use the most powerful tool to solve any problem. That is not a good thing to do, but use a recommendation. Anyway, for the design, there is no a big difference. I am going to talk more about the algorithm next class, so you do not need that. It's a red light in terms of your knowledge of programming, your knowledge to solve a problem with a reduced number of tools. GUI and GUI. And at this point, I am sure that you can help me. What is the problem for your exam? What should I have here? Black or white? Question in your exam, that source code. What is the relationship? I agree with you. It's a relationship with diamond. Which one? The one in white or the one in black? Black. Composition, black. Why? I have the variables, they are global. I have the constructor. The constructor is calling this method below, and that method below is doing the news. And the constructor is the default one. Always, 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 the constructor is going to run. Always, always, always is going to call the method below. Always, 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 the news are going to happen. It's a black diamond. Okay, good. So, 4. Even in the 4, another method with one line. And again, GUI, GUI. The error there, the same one that we just talked about, right? All of this, yeah. But everything else is moving to a better way. Big error here. I was in the middle line to put this here or in the previous category, this. You do not need to represent as classes the collections. You're using a vector, put a variable vector here. You do not need to show the relationship. Usually what you do with the collections is the collection go inside of the classes. It's a variable, not a relationship. Graphical elements, other classes, you put the relationship. Remember, the class diagram is used an abstraction. You want to show what is happening. And this vector or linked list or any other collection as a class usually not happen because they are abstract. They are going to have inside other elements. And you can represent that collection in a different way. Don't do this, do not add that, just remove that part if this is your project and go. Fix this, fix this. The methods, the variables, moving forward, look good. I think we reviewed this before. Main recommendation, you do not need to do a particular inheritance for the menu. You can just use JMenu directly. But in general, you are showing the classes, you have your classes. This is wrong because you have the relationship also. We described this before, but somehow moving forward. And the last one, and I stop with this one, probably, and I do not review the code, but what do you think about the diagram? Just look into the diagram. I have relationships or variables, so one or the other. That good. I have constants. even though they are linked list, but they are constant. I could understand that they are constant for the keyword delimiter operators. Looks okay. The relationship lexer to token looks good. The relationship between the graphical user interface and the other elements look good. The class diagram could be okay, but however, this is not perfect because something that I asked for was for a menu, and this particular solution is using JBottoms at the top, which is not a menu, so it's not exactly following the requirements. But well, the relationships are okay. Similar with this, the text area, you have two text areas. I am assuming the first one and the console. I am missing the A table, even though I have the default model. I think something is missing there with the real table. But again, in terms of the variables, private, public, relationships, this is the closest one that I found to something that I can show you and tell you, maybe around this idea you can work for something that is correct. Well, this idea or the previous ones is used for select categories. Any question, guys? This is a big summary of your class diagrams. Questions? Most of them, I think I could be missing a couple of them, a few of them, maybe 2 or 3. So don't worry, if your diagram is not here, probably one of the ones that I missed, some of them. Good? Okay, the next point for the next class is, did you use the if-else in order to do the parsing, in order to select the words? And I think 99% of you, the answer is going to be yes. You use if-else. Do you think that maybe there is another solution, not the if-else? Think about it. Well, switch case is basically the same idea. Switch case versus if-else. I want to talk about the performance of that. Regular expressions. Yeah. What are regular expressions? State machines. A regular expression, each time that you create a regular expression, you are creating a state machine. And state machines is something that we can use to solve a problem. And the only reason because I want to talk about this is because they help us to improve the design of the solver. But that is a topic for our next lecture. So you have the slides. Please review everything that we talked today. Review the slides. Review your diagrams. Be sure that you understand what you can improve for the next assignment. And we continue next lecture. Okay? See you guys. Thank you.